You know, I have to say it's been a while since I've been this pumped up for a fragrance. I'm going to be talking to you guys about Mercedes-Benz Club Extreme today. So this was actually a 2015 release, and when you go back and you start doing some research and looking around, it didn't really seem to get all that much talk. And then I guess either it was a limited edition or something that they decided to discontinue pretty soon after, because up until recently, you could not find this stuff anywhere. And I mean anywhere. Normally when it comes to discontinued things, you can usually kind of hop over onto eBay as like a last ditch resort and be able to see some bottles there. They're usually going to be very expensive, but at least you could see that the opportunity is there. If you wanted to spend a ton of money, you could buy one. But when you look on eBay for this stuff, it just isn't there. And so usually that's a pretty good sign that this was probably discontinued pretty soon after release, and there was just a very limited supply of it. However, somehow randomly a bunch of it came into stock on discounters for about $50 for 100 ml, just like this one. And now will be the perfect time for me to cover this while you can get it at the time of you watching this video when it first goes live. It's likely to sell out pretty quickly, and then you might never be able to pick it up again. So if what I described here sounds interesting to you, this would definitely be one worth checking out. And so I'm going to walk you guys through this whole thing today, tell you how it smells, how it performs, what it is similar to, and if I do think it is something worth picking up. I'm actually going to go through the whole thing, just opening, you know, here and kind of talking to you as it sits now, and then I'll just kind of smell it along as we go through this review here. And so starting off with this opening, you get a lot of woods and patchouli when it first opens up. It's kind of sweet, almost borderline chocolatey. There's this dusty, powdery smell. It almost pushes it over to having like a coffee note, even though officially, at least according to the note breakdown that's given to us, there is no coffee in here, but it almost kind of gives off that impression. But when I first got this one in, I smelled it, I was like, wait a minute, this is actually really, really impressive. You know, going into it, I wasn't really sure what it was going to be like. I thought maybe it would just be woods and that's about it. But there's woods with some serious depth going on and some complexity here, which I really do admire. So we'll take a look at the full note breakdown here. Up top we have orange, bergamot, and lotus. In the mid we have amber, leather, and sandalwood. In the base we have patchouli, woodsy notes, and musk. So again, no coffee. It does seem like that's missing, but you do get a lot of that patchouli, some of that leather going on, the woods, and definitely the amber, kind of a sweetness there. To me, another note that might be missing is a tonka bean, maybe even a benzoin, kind of dusty, powdery nature that this one does give off, but still that is the notes that's given to us. Most notably of those, the patchouli is kind of the star of the show, and again, to kind of go circle back, that's what gives off that almost in one way or another kind of chocolatey smell, and that sandalwood is kind of backing up that patchouli to kind of help that along a little bit. One thing that this will actually remind you of a little bit off the opening, something like Mugler's Angel Men, believe it or not. And you do kind of get that. That one's also very dominant on the patchouli, uses a coffee accord and that sort of thing. Fantastic scent. Now, how close are they? The opening, they're pretty close, I have to admit. However, as you further get into the dry down of the Mercedes-Benz, it does kind of venture away from that comparison a little bit. This one is actually a little bit more smooth, a little bit more creamy. Angel Men, pretty much the entirety of the scent, has a little bit more texture going on in a way where that one is even a bit challenging to people. You know, kind of might catch you off guard if you don't know what you're getting into. This one, I think, is going to be a little bit more designer, even though they're both designer, obviously, but this Mercedes-Benz version kind of just is a little bit more approachable for most people. And I think even as a newer collector, you could pick up something like this, give it a few wearings, and come around to it pretty quickly. Whereas with something like Angel Men, you might have to really grow into it a little bit more. And let's look at some of the comparisons here real quick. We have Angel Men as the first one on there. The other one is Pure Malt. For me, not so much pure malt. Pure malt has obviously a bunch of whiskey and literally smells like malt whiskey. This doesn't really have much of a booziness at all. So I kind of can't get on board with that one. Mercedes-Benz Club Black, I don't think so at all. Again, this has a little bit of a benzoin, kind of dusty feel, but no heavy vanilla. Mugler's Pure Wood, I believe that is. Same deal. I do have Pure Wood. That is one of the harder to find ones that I do own, and I don't really get that. Leighton, no. Burberry London for men, no, I don't really get that comparison either. Mancera Red Tobacco, the one Eau de Parfum. Further you go, the more confusing and less sense all of that makes. So I think your best bet when you're trying to connect the dots between what this smells like to other things, it would be Angel Men off the top. And then as it dries down, kind of gets into its own thing. It gets smoother, sweeter, creamier from that orange in here. But ultimately, guys, this one for me is exciting, because this is a designer scent that is doing something a little bit different in one way or another. It brings a little bit more to the table. It's kind of exciting, unique, and fun to wear, easy to pull off, and is good for the cooler months of the year. And so obviously, as we're kind of coming to an end of winter and spring is on the horizon, this might be something that you would kind of start working out of. But for at least us anyway, spring can have some pretty cool days as well. And just on those cooler spring days, this one will work. You do get kind of the best of both worlds, of a little bit of a creamy sweetness, even a slight fruitiness, but then some of that woody, kind of chocolatey, creamy smell also. Quality on this one has been fantastic. I really haven't had any complaints with any of the fragrances from Mercedes-Benz. All of them have been great quality for the price. I think that they do represent their quality very well when it comes to this price point that they fall in at, which is generally around this $40 to $50 range. In terms of performance, this one has actually done really well on my skin. About 8 hours or so longevity, which is pretty solid, especially considering this is an eau de toilette. And also, given the fact that it's a more affordable scent overall. 8 hours is pretty respectable for this. That dry down really hangs on, because this one is mostly made up of heavier notes, the amber, patchouli, sandalwood, things of that variety. So it really kind of has a lot to hang on to, and it does a great job of making it to that 8 hour mark. Projection pretty much throughout the entirety of the scent is on the lower side. A little bit more of a personal scent, one where people will have to get closer to you to be able to pick up on it. But once they do, it's kind of one of those things where they'll be maybe even intrigued a little bit and they'll want to come in for more. Ultimately, is this one you should pick up? I would say if you're into things similar to this one and kind of the patchouli, woody, almost chocolatey, sweet scents, definitely worth a try. Also, when you factor in the fact that this is very hard to get generally, except for right now as it's randomly been in stock, could be a good collector's piece. It could be something that you could grab, hold on to, and if you don't like it, worst case, you could resell it for what you paid for or more later on down the road. It does make it more of a safe blind buy at that point. That being said, from a scent standpoint, it's not going to be something that just anyone will like, okay? So you got to make sure you're into this sort of thing. But if you are, and ultimately, if you want something a little bit different from a designer and you're only paying about $50 for it, this would be one you should seriously consider checking out. That's going to do it for me, guys. Mercedes-Benz Club Extreme. I will link it down below for you so you can check this one out if you want to get it before it's too late. No promises that it's going to be in stock for very long, so make sure if you are interested to pick one up before it's too late. That's going to do it for me. Thank you so much for watching. Stay safe, stay healthy. We'll see you tomorrow with another one. Take care.